I said, you know what? I don't even think about the saxophone when I'm playing. I think about the cello or the viola. No one wants to hear Charlie Parker. They want to hear you.
What does a saxophonist who's recorded with Chick Corea, Michael Brecker, Ron Carter, and Joe Henderson work on in the practice room? I asked this exact question of Steve Wilson, the consummate New York pro sax player, and his answers genuinely surprised me. In this video, Steve walks us through his practice routine as well as his very best advice for developing saxophone students. His latest album, Enduring Sonnets, is a masterclass in gorgeous alto and soprano saxophone sound. I put a link in the description. Please enjoy.
I have basically the same routine when I do get to practice before I get to other music that I'm working on. So that's long tones. I always start with long tones to open me up. So what I'll do, I'll put a towel or my pouch that, I have my neck, my alto neck into the bell to get the back pressure. So I'll do that for 10 to 15 minutes. And what I'll do is I start on low G. I go down to D sharp or D, go back up. And then, if I have time, go all the way up to F. So I'll start low, like maybe metronome, usually around 90, 92, from pianissimo to forte to pianissimo, and then up or down chromatically. Then if I have time, I'll take the pouch out, make sure that I can control the pitch. For me, intonation is everything. So I'm trying to make sure that I can control that my embouchure is opening up. I'm not too tense, that I'm loose and flexible. Then I'll go to scale exercises. So I have a couple of scale exercises that I do, usually like a major bebop, up and down, and I use that for my articulation. So da 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 da. So I'll do that 3 ways. I'll do the same scale 3 ways. No articulation, then the alternate tonguing with the da da da, and then all tonguing da 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 da, legato, making sure that my fingers and tongue are coordinating, that they're working together. And I really don't go on to anything else until that is happening. There's an Eddie Harris exercise from his book, The Intervallistic Method, that I love and been doing for years. So it's basically he does octave displacement. Da 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 da. But every other note is up an octave. Da 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 da. Ba, da, ba, ba. So it's like C, D, E, F, D, E, F, G, and so forth. And the same thing coming down. And that helps my embouchure to stay stationary because I don't want to depend on my embouchure to change the octaves. I'm trying to use my throat. So I don't have to do this anymore, but I used to look in the mirror and make sure that my embouchure was pretty steady, that I'm not doing this back and forth motion to change octaves, because I want to have control of that. And then I'll do it faster through several keys. So usually C through E I'll do. In terms of etudes, the Cargulier caprices. I love those caprices. Technically demanding, but they're so musical. The Joe Viola creative reading studies, which I've been doing for many years. And I will come back to the Fairlink 48 etudes, the slow ones. The slow ones makes you pay attention to what you're doing in the upper register and controlling your sound and your tone and your pitch.
You've got an amazing alto sound, amazing soprano sound. If you had to choose one, which one would it be?
Soprano. And the reason for that is I didn't learn the soprano through the same way I did the alto. You learn the lineage. You go down the line of all the great players, you learn the language. I didn't really learn the soprano that way. My first big influence on soprano was Wayne Shorter. Then I went back and got to Hodges when he was playing soprano, Sidney Bechet, and it felt more natural to me. And so even from the very beginning, the soprano felt more like my natural voice. The alto took me a long time. I didn't really come to my true alto sound until maybe 15 years ago.
I need to find my sound on alto or tenor or soprano. What do I have to do?
It's very hard because we're sort of taught, especially in education, oh, well, you've got to listen to Bird, you've got to listen to Cannon, whoever it might be on whatever instrument. But ultimately, you cannot go to somebody's gig. You cannot go on a gig and say, oh, well, now I'm going to play with Phil. Now I'm going to play like Kenny Garrett. Now I'm going to play like this one, that one. What does the music call for you to do in that moment? You have you. You know what? I don't even think about the saxophone when I'm playing. I think about the cello or the viola. So when I hear Hodges, I'm thinking, oh man, he sounds like a viola or a cello sometimes, because the sound is so pure. When you listen to the great classical saxophonists like Marcel Mule, these guys had such a pure sound. So I'm not even thinking so much about trying to sound like Train or Bird, because you have to find that sound, what speaks to you. It's a very slippery slope, as we know, to emulate our heroes. And I think that's important in the development. But when you go into a situation, no one wants to hear Charlie Parker. They want to hear you because they've hired you for you. It's tricky because that gravitational pull, man, is like, oh, yeah, I remember what Bird played in his blues or what. But, hey, you got to be in the moment. And even when you're shedding those transcriptions, you can't play that on the gig because it won't work. You have to be in the moment. Find different ways of making their practicing purposeful. Don't just practice stuff that you can do well. Find out what it is you need to work on, focus on that, but pay attention to the little things, articulation, air support, staying open in a high register that you're not closing off. Voicing, like, the purpose of overtones, because that'll help your intonation and you're not depending on moving the embouchure, the chin back and forth. Try not to develop bad habits because they're very hard to unlearn. Playing classical etudes, not for the purpose of being a classical saxophonist per se, but to be able to play these etudes to make sure you're playing in tune, to make sure that you're executing things well. One of my Bibles is the furling. That was instrumental in my development. And it showed me what I was doing wrong. It showed me that I didn't have control of the high register and I was working too hard. And it also helped me to develop my sound because I couldn't sound like anybody else when I was doing those things. I knew right away what I was doing wrong. So I had to face my demons.
I tell people there is no one way. If you listen to Cannonball or Jackie McLean or Paul Desmond, any of these acts, the articulation is very different. And there's some people that almost don't do any articulation.
Right. Right.
And there's everything in between. So I'd like to know, how do you navigate that question?
Yeah, and you're right. It's very tricky. You equate it to the way a person talks. Whether they pronounce certain words or a certain accent they might have, But I usually start them with basically scale exercises and what I call the da, da, da. So using the da on the upbeat, on the ah on the downbeat. So da, da, da. And using a legato approach to basically tie them all together. So they're not getting a separation. But I always preface that with saying, well, look, this will give you a good basic foundation when you think about a line da 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 da. Then you can add variation, but that's not the end game. When you're going to listen to all of these different players, you're going to find that everyone's doing something different. This is kind of a middle ground that gives you just a basic concept. Over time, yes, you're going to study a lot of different players and what they do, but don't feel like there's just one way to do it. It's the foundation, the very beginnings, when you have great teachers and mentors. I started in 7th grade, like we all do, playing the symphonic wind band, marching band, jazz band, the whole thing. We also had garage bands in my neighborhood because all of the kids, all my friends played music. In those bands.
Where was this?
In Hampton, Virginia. My father, he had a small but eclectic record collection. So very young, I got exposed to Miles Davis, Ahmad Jamal, the Beatles, Motown, Stax, Miriam Makeba, Johnny Mathis, big band, everything. And probably the most important part, he took me to my first jazz festival. By the time I was 13, 14 years old, I had seen Rahsaan Roland Kirk, Cannonball Adderley, Freddie Hubbard, Stanley Turrentine. So that too was very influential in my musical development.
Not everybody grows up to be a Steve Wilson, though. What sets those people apart?
For me, it was a calling. And I think we are all called to music because, I don't think any of us, at least I hope none of us, get into this for fame and fortune. And now if that comes with it, fantastic, beautiful. During that time, I listened to the radio all the time. And radio stations weren't so compartmentalized like they are now. You could hear everything. I could hear everything from Blood, Sweat, and Tears to Kool and the Gang to P-Funk to whatever. Music just spoke to me. And also, it was on TV a lot. So you're getting it in the thread of the culture. You're steeped in the culture, whether you even realize it or not. Let's face it, and the truth is, not all of us are going to go on to be performers. But what you take with this experience is that, one, you understand the importance of jazz in American and world culture, right? So if they're going to be an educator or presenter, they become an ambassador of the music. And jazz encompasses all kinds of music, because of the cross-fertilization that's happened in America particularly, but also it's all over the world and it's constantly evolving and developing. Every kind of music has its own sort of discipline. If you approach it in that way, it just makes you a better musician. Think of what Duke Ellington said. There's two kinds of music, the good kind and the other kind. Go on every kind of gig you can and approach that gig and give it what it calls for. Don't think like, oh, this is below me. It doesn't matter what your style, what focus you want to go into. You can be informed by everything.
Because it's not easy to be a professional musician.
No, it's not. Well, the first thing I tell them is that remember that this is a marathon, not a sprint. When I arrived in New York, it was what was then being referred to as the Young Lions phase, because when Marcellus had come along and had opened the door for many of us as young musicians. And, there were a lot of young musicians getting signed to record labels. I tell my students that, look, this profession is a craft. So front load your preparation as much as you can, like while you're in your 20s and your 30s, in your teens, because real life comes along, later you may get married, have a family, your career may take you in a different direction. 99% of your opportunities that come, you cannot foresee it right now. Yes, you're trying to do all the things you need to do to be a great improviser, a great musician, but hey, you may be called to become an educator or a presenter or something else, that broadens your skill set, that still keeps you in the music. Try to get connections with as many different musicians as you can, meet as many of your heroes as you can, front load that preparation. When opportunity and preparation, when those come together, that's called luck. Trust me, a major record deal is just the beginning of your problems. Right? I can tell you that from experience. That will come and go. Okay, you'll get a record deal, you'll tour the world. And what happens 5 years after that when they say, okay, time's up, thank you very much, next, what are you going to do? I'll give you a week at the Village Vanguard. What are you going to do the other 51 weeks? Broaden your skill set. Be prepared for everything. Don't see it through a narrow lens. Relationships is the most important thing, not just in this music, but in life. That's another thing I learned from all the masters. Chick Corea, Dave Holland, they continue to evolve. In a nutshell, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I'm going to let the world know we're going through a renaissance. So we have now, I think, what will be at least 4 or 5 new clubs that open this year. Music is a communal experience. It's great that we have the internet. It's great that we have these platforms to expose us, but you're not getting the full experience of live music. It's like church, it's communion. And not to be religious about it, but it's a spiritual experience, and when you're there experiencing the music with other people, and like Art Blakey used to say, from the creator to the musician to the audience in split-second timing, there's no substitute for that.
Let's talk about your new album. The tunes you chose, they're lesser known standards, let's say.
Yeah, the concept started as a ballads record. And as I started thinking about the repertoire, I said, wait a minute, this is not going to be a ballads record, really. It was leaning more towards one of the first tunes that I thought about was a tune by Gino Vanelli called The Surest Things Can Change. And then another song was The Eyes of Love by Quincy Jones. You know, some of these songs have been with me for all of these years, and I've always wanted to play them or record them. None of them are really what I would call from the traditional jazz repertoire. This recording is about lyricism, but also with the sensibility of when we had albums in the 70s and 80s. That album was like a story. It was like a book. It unfolded, and you would sit down with that album because you were invested in that album. You saved your money. You went out and bought that album. You put it on. You listened to every song. You looked at the liner notes. You looked at the personnel. You looked at the date it was recorded. And that's what I want the listener to come away with. There's a soundscape with the arrangements. It's not like a lot of extended solos.
Because it sounded to me like there was a wider range of listener it was intended for than just, jazz audience.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, you nailed it. I'm really not trying to do a jazz record per se. Most jazz audiences, they have a broader palette of listening.
If you're a saxophonist, you got to listen to it for the amazing alto and soprano sound and playing all throughout. But if you're a musician, the musicianship and the arrangements and the recording, everything about it is top notch. So
thank you, Jay. Appreciate that, man.
Yeah. All right, Steve. Well, thank you so much for being with us. And, look forward to next time our paths cross.
I look forward to that, man. And again, I enjoy the channel. Thank you for all that you're doing for the music, for the saxophone, and just keep up the great work, man. Thank you.